Countries around the world use opportunities in various forms of platforms to promote themselves through cultural exchange, trade, and tourism, as well as other forms of investment. This further enhances the country's bilateral relationship and other forms of ties on culture, tourism, diplomacy, and social bondage. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ETV English, a special program. A program where we mention pertinent and trending issues of concern. And in today's ETV special edition, with my special guests, namely Dr. Mark Darko and Ambassador Wallace Williams, as well as Anthony Oching. And these are my guests. And once again, do stay tuned, and we're going to bring you lots of relevant pointers that is related with the point that I've mentioned. And without any further ado, I'll be giving the first chance to my guest ambassador, and a very warm welcome all of you to the program.
Thank you very much, Bini. It's a pleasure to be here, pleasure to be in the land of origins, the land of unifying force for Africa, the land of unity, the land of the founding religions of true Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and from the Caribbean point of view, Rastafarianism.
Interesting, Ambassador. Just before we go to the crux of the matter, I want you to introduce a little bit about yourself so that our audience will have a clear understanding of what you've been doing.
Yes. Okay. I'm the Honorary Consul General for Antigua and Barbuda to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and I'm also the Vice Chairman of the Kenyan chapter of the Asia-Africa Chamber of Commerce. And we just launched the chapter last week in Kenya, and then we were invited by the President, Selam, to come to Ethiopia and see and meet with many of the key individuals here in Ethiopia to see what we can do together and partner in various areas and explore them. And so far, since we've been here, it's been very exciting, the opportunities.
Just move to Anthony.
My name is Anthony Ochieng. I'm a senior tourism consultant, currently market development representative for Uganda Tourism Board. I market destination Uganda in the African source markets, basically the whole of Africa. Thank you.
I now go to Dr. Mark.
I'm the president of the Asian African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Ghana chapter. We have come to Ethiopia because Ethiopia is, for me, a very important economy in Africa. Given your history, where you are coming from, you never got colonized by any colonial masters and all of that. You are very important to us in the space of the African economy. So we are here to explore opportunities here by way of tourism, by way of investments on behalf of the Chamber. So that's why we're here.
Let me get back to Ambassador. What was your impression when you landed here in Ethiopia? What have you experienced, and what was the kind of experience that you had before?
I've passed through Addis, and that is an important point to make. I passed through Addis almost 10 times over the past 2 years, but never stepped into Ethiopia. So it shows that you have become the hub for Africa, because I flew many times. I think by now, Ethiopian Airways should probably give me a free ticket. I flew through Addis to connect to Kenya, to Rwanda, to Ghana, back to Nigeria several times over the past 3 years, even during the pandemic. So I realized how important Ethiopia as a hub and as a central part of Africa is to the African countries and the African economy and international. And I dare say I know that you played an exceptional role during the pandemic in moving, cargo and materials to the African countries. So for me, now having come down from the aircraft, finally, to see Addis Ababa, cool, most of the people I've met, extremely friendly, hardworking, smart, and I can see that they are very sure and confident of themselves. And this is what Africa needs. We need sure, confident people who are not cowed by colonial and neo-colonial and imperialistic mentality from the outside.
This also goes to my other guest, Antonio. So what was, if you have been to Ethiopia before, if not, what was the kind of impression that you've had, and what have you heard about it, and how do you find the practical experience you're having here?
Marketing Ethiopia as a tourism destination in collaboration with other African countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. So in the past, I've had discussions with the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia in Nairobi, and also the Federal Republic of Ethiopia in Kampala. So through that, or through those processes, I came to realize that Ethiopians are very friendly people. So the first time I landed here, I can attest that the immigration officials were very friendly. They looked at my passport and said, "Oh, Kenyan, come, just pass, just pass." They stamped my passport and there I went. And the hospitality continued all the way to the hotels, the shopping malls, every other person I met in the street, they were very friendly. So this is a destination that we cannot ignore in Africa because of, it's like the motherland of Africa, all right? And most of the diplomatic corps offices are also here. So it's a destination no African country should ever ignore. Thank you.
So we now go to, of course, Dr. Darko, and tell us your experience in Ethiopia, particularly in Addis.
I corroborate what my colleagues have said. Hospitality is excellent. Your interpersonal skills are very good. Most of you speak English, so it was quite easy for me to interact right from the airport. Things were very easy for us to enter and come to your country. But for me as an investment banker, I've been looking, when I land in any economy, first thing I look at is how ready is the country for investment. Right from the airport, your logistical services, you have Ethiopian Airlines, one of the best in Africa. The infrastructure at the airport was extremely welcoming. It is clear that Ethiopia is a big and a welcoming economy, an economy that every investor out there will want to take a very good look at it and come and invest in it. So I see you as an open economy. Your systems are very good. I wouldn't bother to put my money into your...
Three of you have actually put things in a very plain manner that's actually interesting. But I'd like to ask you, the recent happenings here in Ethiopia and what the Western media's false narration, as if something wrong is happening in the capital Addis Ababa in order to, dismantle the image of Ethiopia. But when tourists come across from different border, what they see is the opposite, like you said it yourself. So I'd like to ask you this question from your point of view. Is that what is happening here?
No, you see, we've got to change the narrative. Ethiopia stands for Pan-Africanism. I have seen it today where you've got a unity park. You talk about, Africa being Ethiopia being the uniting country for Africa, and I absolutely agree. And the West and other countries would want to change that narrative because you're a unifying force. Africa Renaissance has to wake up now. And the fact that if Ethiopia we've been to the Ministry of Mines today, I was shocked by the number of mineral resources that Ethiopia has. It's a hidden secret. I was shocked when we spoke yesterday to the minister that you have 59 wells of gas. I was shocked that you had a closed economy and international banks were not here when we met with the governor of the central bank, and the opportunities that are open now for African investment, pro-African investment. We are looking at the fact that Africans must now do it for themselves, right? We talk about Africacy, myself and Professor Lumumba, which is Africans doing it for themselves, by themselves. African solutions to African problems. And we've got to support Africans like Ethiopia who are doing it for themselves, by themselves. You have a very strong leadership who's saying, well, we are going to do it our way. And, others will have to follow. And I think that is the mantra that the rest of Africa needs to take up. And thank God we have a country like Ethiopia who wants to stand up and say, we can do it, we will do it, we are going to do it.
It's also Anthony. So just tell us how we can possibly play a role as an African solving the wrong narration coming from the other countries like Europe.
Talk about tourism in relation to your question, to answer your question. Currently, if you look at the statistics from United Nations World Tourism Organization and WTTC, World Tourism and Travel Council, 48% of the international, let me call them guests, visited Africa. Now, if you compare that figure to other destinations like Europe and America, it ranges between 78% to 90%. Okay? So basically what I'm trying to say is the international community that are flying into Africa, the margins are growing lower by the day. However, if you look at the statistics of inter or intra-travel within Africa, it is increasing. So basically what I'm saying is it is high time for Africa to become a domestic tourism market. Okay? We need to visit each other. Countries need to open their borders. Countries need to open their skies so that Africa can become one market for Africa in Africa. With that, even tourism will thrive. More jobs will be created. Tourism investment will also be enhanced.
Yeah, Doctor, would you please say a little bit about on the issue?
My second time here, and I see there is a very peaceful environment. So it is exactly opposite what the media is trying to portray to those who are outside Ethiopia. Now, when investors are looking for places to put their money, some of the things they look out for is what I've just mentioned: peace. How is the place organized? So every economy in Africa in general really hinges on foreign direct investment. So if the place has an environment like that is investor ready and welcoming, why not? Then it means the economy is ready for FDIs. But one thing I noticed that we are all supposed to put our heads together and work on is that the entire African continent is an import-driven economy. So we import everything that we consume. So when I went to lunch, I was looking at the things around how many of these things that we ate on the table were really produced from here. Most of these are imported items. That's why we are here, especially because we are chamber members, to sensitize the African people that this is the time for us to produce what we consume, so that we are not only an import-driven economy. We don't just mine, and the doctor mentioned the mineral resources that you have here. We don't just mine all of them and ship all of them away as raw materials. There has to be a way where we can create the factories and add value to the products that are Ethiopian origin products. That way we can create jobs for the people on the streets. They wake up in the morning, they have factories to go and work in. So that's something we should be looking at very seriously.
Recently, you've had this Asian African Chambers of Commerce, and I've also tried to look at some social media information and how it has been, impacting Africa. So tell us a little bit about it and how this kind of platform helps countries like Ethiopia so that we can take the business-to-business relationship to the highest level.
Thank you, Benjamin. So it is the Asian African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. This is a transnational chamber of commerce that is actually providing the essential linkage between businessmen in Asia and businessmen in Africa. Investment opportunities in Asia and investment opportunities in Africa. We know that these two continents, Asia and Africa, are emerging economies that have very huge potentials. So it is about time we started putting ourselves together as a strong force. And what we are trying to do is that we have a mantra, that the mantra is industrialize Africa. So that's why I want us to put a little stress on not just trade, but industry. So we are here to see how we can create the necessary capital, the necessary human resource, and all of that, and also technology, so that we can be an industrialized economy. Our economy naturally has progressed from agriculture economy to a trading economy in Africa.
How would that platform would impact the entire Africa in general and Ethiopia in particular, because there are lots of business activities going on?
To support what Dr. Darko is saying, because we are talking about the chamber now and the role of the chamber, one of the things we want to do is adopt a principle that Ghana started and have that across the continent. That is one district, one factory. How do we do that? We are partnering with Asians. Bring your technology, transfer your technology and skills, develop our local content, bring yours as well, and we work together for a win-win. If every country within Africa has one factory, one district, and they all are partnering with the local communities, whether it's to develop the resources or the minerals or provide services, we are now an industrial Africa. We become a hub, just like you have outsourced companies within the Indian subcontinent where you use the UK and the US use them and they outsource telephony, IT, etc. To support also what Anthony has been saying, we need now to think, as Ethiopia has been promoting, a Pan-African unity, and it's not by chance that the African Union is here. The unity of Africa is here. It resides here in Addis Ababa. We need to open up the skies. Absolutely correct, because we need to be able to fly freely between the countries. We need to remove visa restrictions. We need to have one United States of Africa passport or travel document. If we can do that, we are now able to move goods, services, people. The money that we make will stay here. And that comes to the other point that we are making. We now can leverage our sovereign wealth to produce one standard united digital African currency. And that is something that I'm already working on together with other members of the chamber who are IT-oriented. We are looking at standardizing a united digital African currency. And that is to take advantage of the AfCFTA, the African Free Trade Agreement, so that we don't have a multiplicity of currencies, the birr, the naira, the CD, etc. And they are not worth anything. You can't trade with them. You cannot. How are we going to progress? And the Jews teach you a lesson. Their money does not leave their community until 26 times. And I'm saying Jews because the original Jews are from here. Yeah. So we should now go back to what we know. And that is let the money trade among ourselves. Ghana and the Caribbean have something called Susu, where they help each other to develop by pooling their money and giving each individual every week or every month as agreed a sum, so that they can now build a house, go into business, and then they continue contributing. We should go back to that, Ubuntu. Everybody owns everything. Nobody owns anything. Exactly. You know, let's barter, let's trade, let's develop ourselves. We've got to think Pan-African. We've got to think Ethiopian. That is unity of Africa. And therefore, these are ideas that we are working on within the chamber. We have key, passionate Pan-Africanists, but all are experts in their own field, and we are putting together a Marshall Plan for Africa as part of the chamber activities. And that is, we partner with Asians because they've got the technology. They're a little bit more receptive to partnering with us and transferring their technology. We welcome them. They help us to develop and deepen our local content. We make the communities shareholders. The dividends that come from the partnership, it is shared. You get back your profit for what you've invested. We continue to share the dividends. And everybody now knows that they have a stake. They have a stake because 90 or 80% of the world minerals and resources are here in Africa. It is because we are still here. We were to leave. We came here for 2 days. We are leaving at the weekend. So we spend the entire week meeting and interacting with your ministers, the governor of the central bank, the key decision makers in those areas that we now talked about and where we met, having 2 and 3 meetings, not just one. And I love to see that because it means that Africans are waking up to accept Africans have talent, have expertise, and can think outside the box. Some of the things we talked about today, we wouldn't go into too much, but we talked about how we can leverage the resources of the country to provide finance for other development and to reduce your GDP and debt.
And Tony, one of the sector, in our case, that you are going to work along with the Ethiopian government is the tourism sector. And what has really motivates you to work on tourism, and how is this kind of activity would develop people-to-people relationship?
At the end of the day, it is us Africans who need to take care of ourselves. So if I talk from the Uganda Tourism Board point of perspective, we are trying to enhance the regional tourism integration. We are currently working with regional governments. By regional, I mean African governments in the East African region. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Ethiopia, now where we are. So it's a very important market as Africa. There are countries where individuals travel more than the other African states. I will give you.
Interesting. Apart from what you've said, you've been also offering training for all stakeholders involved in tourism and hospitality, and that's what has been happening. How does such platform help us enhancing Ethiopian tourism for institutes as well as for professionals, from your point of view?
Thank you. In the past, I'll go back to COVID again. Pre-COVID, every country was acting independently. So as Uganda Tourism Board, we've started the journey by training the travel trade partners. By travel trade partners, I mean tour operators, travel agents, destination marketing companies, community-based enterprises. We need to train them so that they can get knowledge on the products and services in destination Uganda. This will be followed by travel trade strategies and events, such as expos, farm trips, and what have you, B2B roundtable meetings. So immediately after this training, next month in 2023, we will have a farm trip, whereby the Ethiopian travel trade partners will visit Uganda. Then later in the month of March, the tour operators, the travel trade partners from Uganda will visit Ethiopia.
Any works that you collaborate with the Ministry of Tourism in order to achieve this, promising sector?
Uganda Tourism Board is the marketing arm of tourism in destination Uganda. So even before I came here, it becomes seamless to implement some of these activities. Without the government, it becomes really pretty difficult.
Ambassador, if you have something to add a little bit so that we can go to the last questions.
COVID taught us a very serious lesson. When the borders of Europe closed down, right, we could not travel anywhere. And when they imposed their travel restrictions, the only place I could have traveled was throughout Africa. That taught me a lesson too. And the Ethiopian Airways played a very key role. We were able to travel between ourselves, and we had, minimum restrictions on travel. I remember when I did get to Europe, I finally got to Europe. For example, Gatwick was empty. You couldn't move an inch. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Yet we still had Africa as our home. It's almost like a village. We still were able to talk to each other, move around with each other. The contact, the brotherliness, the sisterliness was there. So it showed us that the need for Pan-Africanism, the need for meeting and greeting and working with each other has become more important. We now can set the pace for ourselves. We don't have to come there. The point he's making there is that now once we recognize, hey, I can go to Rwanda, I can go and spend a vacation in Zanzibar, I can go to the seaside at Mombasa, I can go to the Gambia, I can go to Ghana, I can go to Nigeria. We have everything that we need on the continent. It is now how to marshal it, which is exactly what they're doing, B2B, I call it T2T, tourism to tourism, not even transaction to transaction, which is something that we are working on in the Caribbean now with Africa as well. Just by coincidence, we are now looking at driving the cross-Atlantic south-south travel between the Caribbean and Africa. We offer cruises and island hopping, whilst those coming here go to safaris, go to spiritual and religious faith-based travel, go to Operation Joseph in Ghana, the return of Africans back to the continent, and get to learn our origins from Ethiopia.
I'm urging Ethiopians and the diplomatic corps who are working here in Addis Ababa. Uganda is open. Come and explore the experiences in Uganda.
My message is Africa Unite. Feed Africa first, and let us adopt a standard united digital African currency to trade among ourselves and promote Ubuntu.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching ETV English special program, a program where we have raised pertinent and trending issues of concerns. In our today's edition, we've raised lots of development activities on business, trade, and bilateral pointers on sectors that we have discussed in the conversation. Until I see you in another edition of ETV English special program, goodbye from me now.